I'm with Hala Lidawaya from ACT Conflict Resolution. Now, Hala, what is ACT Conflict Resolution?
Well, ACT Conflict Resolution is a non-profit organization based in Jerusalem. It was established in 2016, aiming to consolidate and protect civil peace and rule of law. In addition to policy analysis related to political and legal framework affecting the reality of security and rule of law in Palestine. Well, ACT adopts the processes of arbitration, mediation, and negotiation as alternative tools for conflict resolution. It also encourages and relies on open and constructive dialogue to affect and make a change in policies.
So you started in 2016. Why were you started?
Well, because of the lack of presence of institutions that are concerned in Palestinian conflicts. This is the basic, ACT Conflict Resolution is the only institution in Jerusalem that actually is concerned with the Palestinian conflicts. It was also established to provide an alternative for going to courts, which usually takes years to get an adjudication. In addition to the increased feud between the two sides of the conflict, usually going to arbitration and mediation is a much faster way to solve these kind of conflicts. As I said, the arbitration and mediation are approaches used as an alternative to courts. They provide quick resolution, secrecy and privacy, specialization in arbitration and mediation because the experts that we work with are more specialized than judges. And it also provides an alternative to the tribal system that usually the Palestinian society goes by when solving conflicts.
So is it community and family-based conflict that you're dealing with?
Yes, we deal with community conflicts, family-based conflicts. We also deal with commercial and real estate conflicts.
So what sort of services do you offer?
Well, here at ACT, we work by two programs. The first is conflict resolution, where we provide legal advice. It's usually when we provide options before heading to courts. There is conflict resolution services, arbitration, mediation, and negotiation. These are tools to solve disputes and conflicts, in addition to the trainings we offer to local community members in order to create a new generation of arbitrators and mediators among themselves in the community. There is also the execution of court rulings. In regard to the Oslo Agreement, there is a lack of coordination between the Israeli and the Palestinian side when it comes to the follow-up with the Court of Rulings. So this we help people with, if it's from Jerusalem in the Palestinian Authority, or if it's people from the Palestinian Authority who have some court rulings here in Jerusalem and the 48.
Was Oslo good for the Palestinians?
Well, this is a large question. Well, most people, because of the Oslo Agreement, are living and suffering right now, especially in Jerusalem. Here at ACT, actually, we have a program, we can say a project that we're working with youth. It's concerned with the effects of Oslo on Jerusalemites, to be exact. There are many, I can say just in general that there are many agreements and, let's say, clauses in the agreement that were not followed and were not done here at Jerusalem. I can say that I cannot provide you with this answer because it's large and many people have their own a point of views, but if we look at what is being done on the ground and at the reality, it is not serving the Palestinians well.
To me, it sort of gave the Palestinians an authority, established an authority, but then the two sides became separated so that you have Israel on one side and Palestine on the other side, and there was a separation. Would that be correct?
There is a separation. From the beginning, it was a separation. And the Oslo Agreement actually increased the separation, okay? But however, because of the lack of the application of the clauses of this agreement, there has been problems to the Palestinians and Jerusalemites, to be exact.
Now, are Palestinians very tribal? Do they try to solve conflict within their own family?
Well, yeah. The dominant feature of the Palestinians is that they are very tribal. They have lost trust in the Israeli side or the services to solve conflicts between them. You know, the situation, the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has raised many problems for the Jerusalemites and the Palestinian community to be in general. They have lost their trust to the Israeli services to solve their problems, in addition to the inability, and they know that there is an inability or to the Palestinian services to be able to implement any sort of conflict resolutions here in the Palestinian or Jerusalemite land, to be exact, and Area C. So yeah, they resolve and they go to the tribal methods and ways to solve the conflicts.
Now, we were talking earlier, you have Israelis, you have Palestinians. Do you have people in the middle that don't really quite know where they are?
Yeah, exactly. People who live in Jerusalem, and to be exact, they are people who have no ID. They have a temporary ID. They are temporary, I can say, residents on the Jerusalem, which is followed to the Israeli lands. They have no citizenship. They have an Israeli driving license. They have a blue ID, which is not an Israeli ID, neither a Palestinian. There is no passport. They go by some sort of document called laissez-passer. And usually this document is not well known worldwide. They're usually asked, what is this? So, yeah, there are people who, in the middle who are not having their identity correct. they're lost. So, yeah.
That must make it very, very difficult.
Of course, it's very difficult. You not knowing where you are, not knowing where you belong to. You call yourself Palestinian, yet you follow the Israeli law. This is a matter of political situation that the Jerusalemites are actually living and going through. Yeah.
If one act of violence is committed against another, then the other often responds with violence back to retain the honor. How do you break that cycle?
Okay, so as an institution, we believe that there is a community transformation model that we want to follow. We focus on stopping the circle of mutual violence by moving from the closed circle of violence between the sides of the conflict into a more open, where it goes to executive and judicial authorities and alternative dispute resolution, ADR, which we work by. Dialogue is usually the best way, and we believe that it's the best way to resolve conflicts and not violence. And this transformation is long-term, which is why we focus on a new generation that could lead this transformation model to later stages, which is why we work with youth.
Has the coronavirus pandemic created more conflict?
Yes, sure. I mean, people have lost their jobs. There is the hard economic status. Man of the house who is supposed to be delivering and protecting his family is unable to do that now. Problems between employers and employees have risen because of the current situation. The employer is unable to pay to the employee. There is also the matter between the landlords and the tenants, between the shop owners and the people who are taking their shops from them. And it was very difficult on an economic level and on the psychological level, because people were being affected heavily because they were unable to move. There is this fear, this constant fear. So yeah, it was very, very, very effective and in a negative way, yeah.
I guess the fear of money, not being able to pay your bills as well, puts a lot of pressure on a family.
Yeah, exactly. Not being able to pay the bills, not being able to pay the tenant. There is basically nowhere for you to live. There is the needs of the children and the house, which many families were not able to do that also because of the lack of, because many of them are workers and daily workers, and they get their money from as a daily wage, not as monthly salary. So yeah.
Now, the political atmosphere, does that destabilize the community and affect peace in the community?
Yes, sure. There is the lack of security to oneself, to your properties. There is loss of any hope to a better future and a secure one. The absence of any serious political intentions to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. This all has led to internal conflicts in the Palestinian community, such as the conflict between Palestinian factions and the different political views to a resolution.
Are some cases unsolvable, or people are not willing to solve a conflict?
Well, we believe that there is no problem that is unsolved. It is usually the approach that the sides of the conflicts take to solve this conflict. It's usually it's when they start to deal with the issue rising between them, which leads us to the first question is how to deal with these conflicts. Usually, as I said, there is lack of communication, lack of conversation, which is usually why these conflicts actually occur.
Is a lot of conflict based on misunderstanding?
Yes. There is miscommunication. there is no conversation. We lack this in our dialogues and in our daily or day-to-day interactions with each other. We do not understand or acknowledge each other's points of views. There is also that we do not focus or look into the needs and interests of the people that are in front of us, which is why we do not look at the situation as we do not look to a win-win solution. We always look at our side and what we need from this, which is why usually it creates more conflicts and disputes between each other. Yeah.
And what sort of successes have you seen?
Well, we have seen many. The terminology of arbitration and mediation is much used in addition to rule of law and civil peace. There are tons of people who are going into trainings and taking trainings with ACT conflict resolution in arbitration and mediation and going through these rules and these methods, taking them into their lives, into day-to-day interaction with people through their lives. There is also the solving of many cases that some people came to ACT to, help. Instead of going to courts, they asked, okay, so why not try arbitration and mediation? And there has been many success stories solving issues and conflicts between people and members of the community.
What's your hope for the future?
Well, I can say that it's a long way to go where we're going to this transformation model that I have mentioned earlier. But it needs a lot of time. It needs a lot of work, and it needs a wider participation of the community itself. They need to understand what is it that we're working through so that they can understand how important it is to get to a different society. The guidelines we're going by and the steps we are taking are now leading us to a great hope that at the end we're going to have a healthier and more educated society, more skilled, and finally and hopefully more peaceful.
And what's your website for people who'd like to know more?
It's actconflictresolution.org. www.actconflictresolution.org.
Okay, Hala, thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Thank you.